Alright, let's see if I can sort of retrace my train of thought. Yeah, I was walking along and sort of thinking about, the problem that we've created for ourselves in our modern times. There's no real model for how to really dig ourselves out of, the challenge that we find ourselves in. The challenge of, the certain type of, disconnectedness. The way in which technology has made us less social than ever in terms of real social. Like when I think about my grandparents and my grandmother, she often sort of lamented television. The advent of television created a situation where now people were relying on television for entertainment instead of each other. The way people used to often entertain each other is they would read to each other. They would tell each other stories. Just spend time together in various ways. And so television was, I think she had a pretty valid concern about like how television was taking it was giving us a convenience where we get like sort of like an automatic download into our eyes and into our brain of sort of vicarious living through other people's experience, through other people's stories, and the sort of the illusions of storytelling through the audio-visual medium of television. And it's very it's a very seductive and it's a very tempting proposition for people to divert their attention away from the difficulties that they face in their life, and instead of like doing something that requires some sort of actual like mental participation, it's like a passive form of consumption. So before we like spent times with our family, and it actually required a little bit of social skills essentially. And so we learned social skills, and it wasn't a big deal, because we had trained those muscles. But with television, a lot of people sort of fell further into the cracks of, well, I don't really want to train these muscles right now. Right now I just want to turn my brain off and watch these people experience a cool hero's journey sort of, or it's like I want to experience romance, so I'm going to watch a movie about romance. So any issue that we had, we no longer really had to even, it's like if it was too big of an issue for us to really tackle in a short amount of time, we could like turn on the TV and like in the span of a 2-hour movie, like you go from, a single man meets single woman, and they have some problems, and then they work it out, and then they lived happily together ever after. And it's like we could like sort of temporarily solve some of our problems by sort of going through the like all these the different, we get a little emotion, hits where we get the whiff of the emotions that that accompany that whole thing, that if you did it in real life, it may take months and years to like come to a point where you have these different levels of catharsis, these different things where you hit a wall and then you figure out how to climb over it, then you hit another wall, and then you find a ditch and you're like, oh fuck, I gotta figure out how to get out of this ditch now. And it's just like, that's a slow process in life, and it's it's very tempting to go off, and instead of doing engaging with that, just sort of like forgetting that there's other people in the world to interact with, and sort of doing it alone, in our sort of like projected imagination. And we almost feel like we are the people. We feel what they are feeling, we feel their satisfaction when they win. We feel like we're winning, but nothing fundamentally. We get to have a nice little theme park ride of what it means to go through a character arc, or a hero's journey, or a romantic encounter. But nothing, it's like we're not really building anything in our lives that is actually gets us anywhere near having that in our own lives in a meaningful way, having meaningful relationships. And so like the television thing, I think particularly for people, it's a very enticing proposition for people who are already sort of have a tendency to like be introverted and contemplative. There we go. Contemplative. And so, it's like, do I really want to engage with real people in the real world? It could be easier just to like hang out and watch a movie instead. And, and I think, so that made it more difficult. It made it easier to get away from our feelings temporarily, but then like it created a situation where now, we could spend years, by ourselves, consuming media and not really doing anything, all the while, we're getting older, and like, there's like a hollowness inside of us that starts to like show its ugly little head when we begin to realize where the reality of that life is going by and not much movement is taking place, and so like, there's like, in a sense, where more of us are becoming like the pure eternus, the eternal child on the social level, because we're like not really building our muscles, because it's easier to just consume. And, and then so later, in the television, it wasn't even that bad, Like, that was still something where we did it, we sat around with our family and we did it sort of together a lot of the time. Some of us, went off and we watched television alone, kind of like an addict, like a drinker who drinks alone, people, who watch TV alone, and that was me for, many years, just sort of like absorbing entertainment. And so, it's like, and now we've like really kind of hit the jackpot of dystopian escapism. Like, we've like hit peak. I don't know, maybe not. I mean, it could get worse, Like, you'd start doing virtual reality, AI, boyfriends and girlfriends and AI families, AI friends. Like, I mean, like, we could go even further into this direction and end up in an even more fucked up place where people really become socially inept. And, I mean, it's at the end of the day, I don't think any, like, artificial version of another human being could ever be satisfying. So like, we've got an interesting sort of problem that there's no real map for how do we, those of us who have sort of fallen through the cracks of this